Hello, gremlins! I'm taking a break from big physical art projects to do some digital art this week instead. I've chosen to be prompted in this art by randomly generated aesthetics, which will become my search terms in Pinterest, where I will then find a photo to turn into a character. And because I don't know how to give myself an easy project, I've decided to find 3 such images with this method, and make a group of characters to fit into some kind of story together. Normally, I would screen record the process of finding images, but I did this step in class this week and was unable to record the screen, so instead here are some bad quality photos I took of my computer screen at relevant moments. My chosen photos are a cluster of glass jar terrariums overflowing with creeping plants, a book open on a table beside a cup of tea and a bowl of honey, and a misty photo of an angel statue that may be in a graveyard. These photos give me 3 very different vibes, and I'm very excited to turn them into a trio of characters. I brainstormed ideas for these characters through the rest of my class, so by the time I got home to my tablet to draw, I had a pretty solid idea for each character's archetype and role in the group. And also gender. I've decided that no one in this group is cisgender. There's a trans girl, a trans guy, and a non-binary warrior with a sword. Truly the best trio. I started by sketching all 3 characters together, trying to make sure their poses would be dynamic. It took a few tries to get the poses as dramatic as I wanted, mostly starting from a fairly stiff base and then pushing my poses further. Once again, I came up with names for all these characters to make writing the script easier for myself. The girl on the right casting a spell is Eve. The boy in the middle is August. And the warrior on the left with the sword is Zephyr. Each character is designed to fulfill a role in this group, a group that I've decided travels from place to place to study, fight, and control various Fey creatures and beings. August is the leader of the group and the smartest, relying on his knowledge of Fey lore to protect the others, as well as coming up with most plans and schemes, and being the one person in the group with a valid driver's license. Eve is a spellcaster, using it for both offense and healing, and is able to understand and counteract Fey magic. And obviously, Zephyr is the muscle of the group's protector, and the person who can best reach the top shelves. They can also drive, but their license is fake, so they only drive when August is unable to. When I had the base poses worked out, I began to sketch each character in detail, using elements of each of their reference photographs in their designs. I started with August, starting by getting a photo of my own hand holding my stylus to figure out his dramatic flourish with a pen. Inspired by the photo I'm working off of, August has a very warm, cozy cottagecore style. He's wearing overalls embroidered with dandelions and a cozy sweater striped like the honey scoop. I'm not sure what that tool is called. He's standing with one hand holding open a book of Fey mythology and research notes in the center of the group, ready to lead them into whatever foe they face. I detailed Eve next, the magic user of the group. Her style is probably most similar to mine, given her inspiration images several bottles of plants. She has on a lot of layers, and her jewelry and the pattern on the hem of her dress match the shape of the leaves and their stems. She's carrying components for her spells, mostly herbal, in the pouches on her belt. Her hair is long and braided, and I gave her a simple hat to give her a witchy vibe without giving her a full pointed witch hat. Finally, I sketched Zephyr, whose reference image has the least to go on. The focus of this image is an angel statue, and the only other information present is some fuzzy trees and the idea of fog. I used the shape of the angel to influence Zephyr's sleeveless coat, which is slightly impractical for fighting, with coattails that have edges shaped like feathered wings. The coat is belted around their waist, and under it they have on a sleeveless turtleneck, their arms covered in bicep-length gloves and tattoos of tree branches. I finished the bulk of the sketching, then spent a few minutes on minor adjustments after flipping the canvas a couple times. Zephyr's hand on their sword hilt, the position of Eve's legs, etc., etc. Then I moved on to the line art, starting with the bold outline of each character before adding details one at a time. I started with Eve. Eve isn't the designated smart one of the group, but she is very smart and very experimental with her spells. She loves to collect things, and many of the things she collects end up imbued with her magic, including the necklace she wears, which wards off Fey charm and makes it easier to see through illusions. She's made the same kind of jewelry for her partners. August wears his under his sweater, and Zephyr's is split between several of their ear cuffs, making them particularly immune to sound-based charms, which has proven useful multiple times. In general, Eve is best at seeing through illusion, August is the best at fighting mental or emotional control, and Zephyr is the best at resisting music-based magic. Eve's belt pouches are full of plants she grew or foraged, which she uses to help her magic. She used to use a notebook full of scribbled spells, but has been casting magic for long enough that most of her spells are fully memorized, and she's able to improvise and break the rules, and occasionally a new spell will be written in Sharpie on the back of her hand. Eve doesn't drive, but is the designated shotgun seat, due to her ability to see through illusions and cast magic out of the car window in a pinch. She only sometimes uses that power to make the red lights turn green faster, and only when August isn't paying attention. Eve's role also means that she's the ruler of the snacks and the playlist as the group travel from Fey-haunted location to Fey-haunted location. The group is therefore subjected to a lot of indie music, folk music, and medieval covers of pop songs. Eve is also the best at reminding everyone to drink water and take meds, and even has notifications on her phone for everyone's medication schedules. Speaking of which, if you need to take meds and haven't yet, let this be a reminder for you as well. And drink some water. August is next to be outlined. He's the shortest member of the group and the least physically able to fight, but he makes up for it in brains and strategies, and when in the heat of the moment, his partners defend him as instinctually as they defend themselves. August is always loaded down with fairy lore, and is always studying more and connecting information he reads to information he observes. Every book he touches ends up covered in notes and dog ears, and he'll write down ideas on any surface that will accept pen ink, including receipts, fast food napkins, snack packaging, and Eve's arm. He'll end up staying up way too late into the night compiling these notes into one of his many journals, and he keeps all his information both in physical paper and digitized to his phone just in case. Many times in random motel rooms, Eve and Zephyr will have to physically hold August in bed with a handheld each so he can't grab his phone or notebook and keep writing as the clock ticks past 1 a.m. In the mornings, he'll be powered by iced coffee and gummy bears and be ready to keep driving, even as Eve mumbles into her pillow and Zephyr locks himself into the bathroom to use up all the hot water. Zephyr has asked August before if he made a deal with a fae to not require sleep, and August always just laughs, which means it isn't off the table. After all, August has a dead name he could have traded for the blessing. Either that, or he'll collapse from sleep debt any time now. Zephyr's design is the simplest, as their photo reference is also the least detailed. They have scars on their face and arms from various battles, and they will always take the hits for their partners. Eve and August both hate this, but they can't stop them. Zephyr doesn't have magic, and while they're smart, they don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of the Fae. What they do have is a large, sharp sword, iron to ward off the Fae, and laced in salt. They also have fists and steel-toed boots if nothing else works. Zephyr is a protector. They scout every hotel or motel room before the others settle. They will always keep watch whenever the group is away from the car, and when someone is injured, they will be the first one at their side, lifting them to get help. Zephyr can lift either Eve or August easily, and with a little more difficulty can carry both at once in a pinch, which has been done before when August was knocked out and Eve's leg was injured in an encounter with a Kelpie. Zephyr's protection also extends to mental protection. Eve may be the one to remind people to eat, drink, and medicate, but Zephyr checks if people are okay, gives the most comforting hugs when they aren't, and makes sure both August and Eve sleep. Zephyr can always sleep in the back seat the next day, Eve and August can't. Between the three Fae hunters, someone is always trying to make sure that the others look after themselves while neglecting themselves, and since all three are doing it equally, they all end up mostly being fairly healthy and looked after. Before I moved from line art to color, I returned to Eve's magic circle and completely deleted the random crap I'd drawn before to try and make a better and more legible circle. I decided that the easiest way to do this was to draw a proper circle and then warp it into perspective after adding details and glowing effects. I started my coloring with August, who is taking the very warm and cozy color palette from the reference image. Everything about his design is kind of golden brown, there isn't a lot of contrast present, and I had to manipulate the colors to get any highlights. His striped sweater is colored the same color as the honey scoop, and is patterned after it as well. Making the shade of gold for his overall class that didn't blend into the sweater proved challenging, so I kept manipulating all the colors until I had enough differentiation. This is the downside of using such a similar color palette. It looks great and cohesive in the end, but requires a lot of subtle tweaks to not be one massive blob of undefined brown. I don't have an exact story in mind for this trio, but I think in general they are known among the right circles as Fae researchers and wranglers, so they get called or summoned by random people to deal with magical problems. Sometimes the problem just needs magic. Most of the time there is a mischievous Fae involved who needs to be removed, redirected, or banished to the other world. Some problems are more complicated than others, and as the trio gets more well-known, the more powerful Fae start taking an interest, which is not a good thing. Hence Zephyr being always on edge, August constantly researching deeper, and Eve always being prepared with magic. I didn't try to color select my skin tones from my images, instead just picking a tone that would work with the rest of the color palette. August is rather pale and red tones, which makes sense as he has a redhead who gets constantly reminded by both partners to wear sunscreen. Eve is next, and her color palette is my favorite, predictably seeing as it is all green and brown. I started with all the details in her design. Her skirt trim is colored the same green as the plant it's based on, and her necklace and earrings are colored the same way. Her belt pouches are all muted green or brown, made of leather or sturdy canvas. Another part of this probably never to be expanded upon story I haven't quite worked out is how these people started working together. I think August and Eve would have known each other for a long time, and Zephyr joined them a little later after noticing these two nerds needed someone strong to help them. Given Eve and August are both very interested in the Fae, although August more in facts and Eve more in magic, I think the two would have started trying to hunt down fairly safe Fae creatures as high schoolers. As two nerdy, trans, almost definitely autistic and ADHD teens, diving into the world of magic was an escape from their not great mundane lives, which unfortunately meant they started getting in too deep. They're smart, especially August, but smarts alone can't outwit the Fae, and Eve was only just getting into magic. That's when Zephyr shows up. Eve and August are just out of high school, Zephyr is about a year older than them, and using martial arts as their own escape. And when Zephyr is practicing with their sword not far from an overgrown lot where August has just been swarmed by pixies, and Eve is desperately trying to use salt and fire spells to get them off him, Zephyr suddenly finds himself tied up in these two magic nerds' lives. And since none of them have any interest in normal jobs, and August can't study Fae lore in university, the three decide to join forces to deal with the Fae. It starts small and local, then Zephyr acquires a van that the others don't ask too many questions about, and now a gap year to figure out their lives has turned into several years of traveling, studying magic, growing closer, and ending up in wildly dangerous and absurd situations. The group started as friends and allies, and then over the course of months together, trusting each other with their lives, their health, their safety, well, it became a bit more. It was Eve and Zephyr first. Well, Eve had fallen for August, but August was her oldest friend, the first person she'd been Eve around, and she was afraid to ruin that. Zephyr was safer. But Zephyr was also falling for August as well, and August was finally realizing he'd been in love with Eve for years, and after an encounter with a Fae that caused everyone to tell the truth, everyone's feelings came spilling out in a very tear-filled cuddle pile. Not a lot changed. They could spend less at motels now by sharing beds, which as a bonus made August actually sleep at a reasonable hour. They'd already been a very physical group, but hand-holding lasted longer, hugs were closer, and kisses were shared. With a group like this, there really wasn't much difference between platonic and romantic. And if I need to be any less subtle, the file name for this drawing while I worked was Fae Hunter Polycule. Zephyr has the most limited color palette, because I'm pretty sure my reference image for them is monochrome, or if it isn't, it has very little hue variety. All Zephyr's colors are shades of bluish-greenish grey at different levels of lightness. Compared to their partners, Zephyr's design is a lot simpler in both shapes and colors, but I'm hoping it balances out the more detailed people, rather than standing out or looking unfinished. Their coat is muted green, their shirt, gloves, and leggings close to black, and the leather of their belt and boots is a dark foresty green. Their sword is colored in the same shades of green, blue, grey. Zephyr's hair is bleached greyish-white, something August and Eve help them maintain because it gives them gender euphoria, which does lead to some interesting situations in motel bathrooms trying not to damage anything with bleach, and not having enough space to really turn it into a DIY salon. Eve also shaves the side of Zephyr's head, as well as maintaining August's hair after he attempted it once by himself with disastrous results. Those of the group using hormones for their transitions also help each other with that, and if August wears his binder for too long on too many consecutive days, Zephyr will confiscate it and put it on a top shelf where he can't reach. I kept the shading simple for this image. In the cel-shaded style I'm leaning more towards. However, the skin is still blended out to look soft, and the light cast from Eve's magic is soft as well. I used a muted purple to shade the rest of the shadows, and added an extra layer of the same purple over the line art so the line art wouldn't stand out against the shadows and doesn't need to be individually darkened. In this scene, the trio is preparing to enter a space ruled by a malevolent but not too powerful fae. Still, it's best to be prepared before entering the threshold. Zephyr's sword is held high, and they've already dropped into a fighting stance. Eve has summoned her magic, ready to send blasts of energy out to combat any magic the Fae will use. And August's pen is raised high, ready to direct his partners with the plan he's scribbled down in his book, a book also ready to receive notes about this particular Fae after the encounter is over. Afterwards, probably everyone will need a little patching up. Zephyr takes too many risks trying to protect their partners, so Eve will gently scold them for being reckless while applying a mix of magic, antiseptic cream, and band-aids to Zephyr's scratched and bruised arms. August will be frantically writing everything he can remember and ignoring the fact that his ankle is throbbing from tripping on a broken tile. And Eve will be mostly unscathed, but for a cut on her cheek, which will mean shaving will be difficult for a few days, much to her discomfort. Patched up, notes written, and breath caught, Eve will leave some salt and protection charms in the area to prevent further Fae occupation, then Zephyr will help August to the car. August will finally let Eve put a bandage on his ankle, and he'll use his luckily unharmed other foot to drive them back to the caravan park where the group is staying for a few days. They'll go via a drive-thru to get dinner and eat sitting on the floor or the bed of the unit until Zephyr crashes and Eve makes August actually go to sleep by cuddling him so he can't do more research late into the night. By the time everyone is asleep, they're all in a tangled mess of limbs and blankets, and Eve is using Zephyr's legs as a pillow. A twist of holly is tied to the bed frame with a scrap of green yarn, and salt's been sprinkled on all the doors and windows since the first night they were here to protect them. August will clean it all up while Zephyr and Eve load the car when they leave tomorrow. This is probably the most detailed character creation I've come up for one of these turn images into people videos, and I had so much fun with it. I'm honestly tempted to revisit this story at some point, but I'm not sure what I'd do with it, other than write a short story of one particular Fae hunting adventure the Polycule gets involved in. I hope you enjoyed this video and all the world building and character lore, and if you have headcanons for any of the trio, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!